Hello, I'm here to tell you a scary story. This happened in my town in California. This happened years ago. My mother and I went to dinner at a restaurant right across from a high school. It was Friday night and we were seated outside. The restaurant had large windows that overlooked the parking lot where students were gathering, before they got into their cars and drove home for the weekend. We sat down, ordered some wine and food. We talked about my upcoming trip to New York City. And then this kid came up to our table. He was maybe 20 or so. He said, "Hi, can I sit here?" I think he was just trying to be nice and talk to someone, because it felt weird for him to come up to a random table and start asking us if he could sit with us. But I was also creeped out by his long, dirty fingernails, so I said, "No thanks." And he walked away. A few minutes later, he came back, tried again to sit with us, but my mom and I both told him no. He stood there for a second, and then he walked away. Then we saw him walk over to another table with a couple of girls. They were about the same age as him, a group of 3 boys and 2 girls. They started talking to each other. We couldn't hear what they were saying. We watched them leave the restaurant and walk together toward the school. We thought nothing of it, finished up our dinner, and then we left and drove home. The next day, my mom and I were watching the news on television, and on TV were those same 5 kids. The girl in the middle, she had blonde hair, she was missing. Had put out a bulletin saying that she hadn't been seen since the night before. The last place she was seen was at that restaurant. That freaked me out. I told my mom, "Let's change the channel." I didn't want to hear anything more about this. I didn't feel like it had anything to do with us. But every time my mom would try to change the channel, something new would come on about this girl. On every channel, they were talking about how she had been missing for over 24 hours. They said she might have gotten into her car and accidentally passed out from drinking. But her car was found parked at the school and nobody had heard from her since. It was until a couple of days later when we saw the news report that showed the 5 kids standing next to each other, one less than before. They were all being questioned in connection with the disappearance of this girl. The boy who had dirty fingernails was missing. No one knew where he was. At first, they thought maybe he had something to do with the disappearance. But then, like a week later, they found his body on the side of a mountain. He had fallen off the mountain. It looked like an accident, but they never figured out why he was up on that mountain in the first place. But the police still didn't know what had happened to the girl. But they searched everywhere, even tore up the floorboards in the restaurant where she was last seen to see if maybe someone had kidnapped her and taken her right there. Nothing. Where is she? She disappeared into thin air. One day, a year after the disappearance, my mom and I are driving in the area where the restaurant is, looking around to see if we can find it. We wanted to go inside and ask if they had found out anything new about the case. I couldn't find the place. It looked like it had been torn down. Well, we kept driving, and eventually we ended up back at the high school, where the kids were last seen. We turned into the parking lot, and we started driving past all the buildings. There was a baseball field, and we saw some people playing softball. I don't remember exactly what the building looked like. All I know is that it had windows. And those windows caught my eye because it reminded me of the restaurant with the windows that overlooked the parking lot. And as we're driving past, I look in the window and I see this desk with a computer. And behind the desk is this chair, and in the chair is a skeleton, not just any skeleton. It was a skeleton wearing clothes. It was wearing a girl's clothes, a plaid shirt and a blue skirt. I don't remember if I screamed or if my mom screamed, but one of us screamed. That's her. That's the girl. Then we started honking the horn, and these people came running from wherever they were playing softball. I rolled down my window and I yelled, "You gotta call the police! You gotta call the police!" I told them what I saw. I got out of my car and I ran to the building, pounding on the door. I was screaming, "Someone's dead in there." Finally, the police showed up. I swear it took them forever. But they did show up, and they started investigating. They weren't really convinced that it was the girl's skeleton, so they sent it away for testing. About a month later, the police called my mom to come down to the station to identify some personal effects that they had found. My mom went down there, and they showed her a pair of shoes and a purse. My mom immediately recognized them. Those were the girl's things. She said, "Yes, those are hers." They asked her if she wanted to see the rest of the stuff they had found, the rest of the evidence. My mom said, "No, thank you. I'd rather not see that." When the police finally confirmed that it was the girl's skeleton, they asked my mom if she wanted to go to the house where the skeleton was found and take a look. My mom said yes. So they took her to this house. It was a sorority house. None of the girls who lived there were ever charged with anything. The girl who had the skeleton in her closet was arrested, and here's what she said happened. She'd been at the restaurant with her friends, talking to a guy. Maybe he was older. She thought he was cute. He was the one with the dirty fingernails. And he asked her if she wanted to go back to his place. She said yes, so she got into his car. But once they were in the car, he stopped at the liquor store and bought a bottle of vodka. They went back to his place, which was up on that mountain. She said that she only drank a little bit of the vodka, but it must have knocked her out. Because the next thing she remembered was waking up in his bed and he was on top of her. She pushed him off of her and she threw the bottle of vodka at him. And then she went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror and she noticed that she had a black eye. She asked him, "Did you do that?" "What?" And he said, "No, you did it yourself." And that's when she got scared. She says she left the house and started walking down the mountain, and she did unknow how long she was walking. She said she was trying to make it back to her car, and then she slipped and fell off the mountain and died. After she told her story, the cops let her go. They didn't charge her with anything. Yeah, it sounds insane. I think this was back in the 80s or something. Things were different back then. I don't know what the hell happened. Maybe she really did kill the girl. The cops never figured it out. After hearing this, my mom said, "I wonder if the girl ever slipped and fell or if the guy pushed her." I've always wondered that too. I'm not sure if she fell or if he pushed her. Maybe someday we'll know for sure, but it doesn't matter. The only fact is that she's dead. They never found her body.